Paul. Well, firstly, have you digested the defeat to Central Coast, and what's, I suppose, been the work-ons from that game?
Yeah, there's always things to improve on. It was a pretty tight game. There wasn't a huge amount in it. That kind of wonder goal settled it really. But definitely some things that we can work on, just talking about what is kind of like becoming our DNA and making sure we're bringing that to all the games, because I think that was probably the little bit of essence that was missing from our performance, was just we weren't quite as aggressive with the press, and we weren't quite as aggressive with the ball in terms of the runs and the forward nature of our play up until that point in the season. So we were just probably 5 or 10% below what we usually are, and I think that made a big difference. And so it's just about getting back to that against Brisbane this weekend.
Got the full week to prepare for another road game. Is that beneficial? Back home, but then another trip back across Tasman?
Yeah, look, 2 away trips in a row is a breeze compared to last season. So these are the ones where we go back to back. Obviously, it's a little bit harder because by the time you get back in that restart training, people are still recovering. I think the pitch really affected the players, to be honest with you. Like after the game, it was very spongy, long grass, and I think that put an extra load on the players in terms of we had players kind of struggling with that don't usually across the 90 minutes. So I think it's been a hard start to the week, but the last few days have been really good. Like training's been sharp and players have been back at it. So we've recovered and we'll go to Brisbane ready and fully fit.
So you haven't had to manage anyone through the week or anything?
No, not really. Just at the front end of the week, still a lot of sore bodies for those that played the full game really. But everyone's been out there the last few days, so it's been good.
Touchwood, you seem to have kept the same squad now for quite a few weeks, other than the long-term absentees with Rebecca Lake and Ella McCann.
Yep.
One player's yet to feature, of course, Amelia Abbott. Is she getting closer?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I sort of said last week, it's just a case of her she started from behind in terms of they've had a head start on her really, the rest of the players, but she's coming good. She's getting better every session. You can see the sharpness coming and that kind of game fitness coming. So she's pushing and could be involved this weekend.
Where do you see her potentially being involved if she does?
Yeah, I think she's got this real nice flexibility. She's played a lot in midfield. She's played at centre back for a university for most of the time. She was in Texas as well. So I think she gives us some really good options. We've been looking at her at fullback in training as well. So pretty much anywhere in the defence or midfield. So she's a real kind of utility in terms of what she can do for the team. So good player to have around.
And Brisbane, obviously they've had a great season, very free scoring. What are their main strengths and how do you stop them?
Yeah, it's like watching Spurs or something, isn't it? Like just all out attack. They score loads of goals. They've been conceding lots of goals. They're pretty exciting to watch. They've got some very good players. How do you deal with them? I think you really have to try to limit the amount of controlled possession that they have, because they like to have the ball and they're good with the ball. And of course they've got some key players that you've got to try and stop, and those battles are going to be key on the weekend. So we've got to be tuned in tactically and make sure that we're organised and secure, and especially from that defensive point of view. But as I said before, as much as they kind of have a threat going forward, they have shown some vulnerabilities as well at the back. And so for us, we're just looking at ways in which we can try and play into some spaces and expose that, and we need to be a threat going forward as well. So I think it's two pretty similar teams in terms of style and what they've been trying to do, and kind of seasons that have gone similar in many ways. So I'm kind of looking forward to this one. It'll be good, and I'm really looking forward to getting to Perry Park. I think it's awesome what they're doing there. They've been getting big crowds. We sort of wax lyrical about our home ground and Porirua Park and what that brings. I think there's been a real good atmosphere there and biggest crowds sort of thing. So looking forward to getting there and the challenge.
And they a different proposition as well with their Matildas. Obviously we didn't face them last time at Porirua Park, but especially with Tamika Yellow. Yeah,
look, I think anyone that gets sort of those quality of players back, it's going to help, right? But they're more than just those two Matildas, really. I think a lot of their players have been having really strong seasons. So, they're going to add value. Of course they are when they're coming back into the team. But there's more dangers as well that we need to just be aware of. So, going into the game like we would every other week, really, like preparing how do we nullify some of their strengths and how we're going to kind of expose some of their weaknesses.
After not getting a point at Central Coast, is there more pressure on this week to get something out of this game, so keep in touch with that top six?
Yeah, look, it's tight, isn't it? I think points, if you draw and then other teams around you win, like you can drop places quite quickly. So yeah, there's some, I guess, pressure in terms of if you want to stay in and around it. But to us, like our expectations are like we want to try to win every game, and so I guess it doesn't really change too much. We're always going to go here, no matter what the result was last week. We're always going to go here to try and win. So nothing will change from that point of view. But it's an important time, this month before the international break to try and keep picking up points, so you can go into that international window and stay in and around the target zone, which is that top six.
And just finally, have you looked at the weather forecast? Is it looking
It'll be hotter than Wellington, that's all we know. Look, we're expecting again probably some heat and humidity. Australia experiencing that. I stayed on in Sydney for a day and I think we had like 39 degrees, so it's hot over there, and there's these thunderstorms and it's muggy and it's different climate to Wellington. So yeah, it's just another challenge, but at the moment we're getting that quite consistently when we go to Australia, so we're getting used to it.
Cool. You've already played very well against Brisbane once this season. Is it a matter of repeating that performance, or is it a different part of the season, different players available?
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's always, I think, some crossover with what you can get out from the game when you have those good performances and you've played someone before. But I think we're both in slightly different states. That was kind of when we were coming right out of our sort of first victory and still trying to find ourselves statistically. We actually weren't great in that game, but we managed to kind of like get over the line. I want to go to Brisbane and be, I guess, the idea is to try and have a bit more control over the situation, the game, and to try and stamp our authority and play our football over there, which will be a challenge, but that's what we're trying to do.
And you mentioned the consistency in the squad selection. What's that like for the players who are maybe on the outer of that? How are they reacting to trying to fight for their place in the squad?
It's tough. Like every footballer wants to play. Everyone wants to start games and be involved. So those that are on the outskirts of that, whether they're on the bench or whether they're just outside the match day squads, it is difficult for them. Like I understand, and there will be obviously frustrations if you're not involved. But what I would say is the professionalism of the group's been fantastic. They're pushing all the time, making our jobs hard. The weekly conversation with the staff around who's starting, who's in the squad is like complex conversations. There's a lot of players that are pushing to be involved and doing really well. So they've just got to keep going, and when their chance comes, they've got to be willing to take it.